So what I thought I would do today is talk to you a little bit about comedy and young people, particularly young guys, which is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about and researching at Comedy Central, and then share with you a bit about my own path and sort of how I got where I am today. I think you're going to find some of the things about the young guys and their taste in comedy really interesting in light of what David was talking about and some of the things we've heard today. So about these entitled millennials. Many of them probably work with you. Some of them might still be living with you. Certainly plenty of them are here in the room. It turns out that comedy is incredibly important to them. Young men say that the taste in comedy, their taste in comedy, says more about who they are as people than any other personality trait or interest. More than sports, which is kind of a shocker, taste in music, religion, politics, right on down the line. Get my humor and you get me. But they also say the same thing about whether or not it will be a predictor of their friendship with other young people. I came from the Gen X generation of people who made mixtapes all the time, and it was all about music. For these guys, if you like Louis C.K. or South Park, then you probably will be my friend. And then sharing that funny content, through social media, on YouTube and Twitter, that's how young people increasingly are making friends, getting girls, being cool. MTV has done some research, and one of their things is smart and funny is the new rock and roll, which I think is kind of cool. But is there anything else going on inside this comedy thing? Well, when we talk to our viewers about why they respond to comedy, we hear four things back from them, things that are important about Comedy Central and comedy in general. They like that we're edgy, smart, that we're youthful and fresh. But the big surprise to us when we spoke to these young people about their taste in comedy was that there was a fifth element that was the most important element of all when it came to comedy. And that was truth. Truth trumped all. If truth wasn't a part of it, it wasn't good. And what do they mean by truth? Well, what they meant was comedy that was honest, authentic, had a point of view, was thought-provoking, said what others wouldn't say. Jon Stewart, right? They saw comedy as being an ambassador to ideas and understanding and to helping them decode the truth as they transitioned into the adult world. So I found that very interesting. And speaking about transitioning to the adult world, I thought I would tell you a little bit about my journey to get into the comedy business. A few years ago, I went through an executive coaching process, not because I was a hothead, but as sort of an enrichment thing. And one of the big revelations of going through that process, small note, I need to smile more apparently, was that I had never really thought of myself as a comedy person. And it turns out that I actually am, and always have been, as I sort of went through this audit of myself. Comedy has shaped my life from an early age, so I'll just tell you briefly that story. One of my earliest memories of really powerful satire, and some of you certainly will know this, was listening to Murphy in the Morning in Charlotte back in the day. There were two things that he did. One was, this was the heyday of the PTL Club, and Jim and Tammy Faye were at their height at Heritage USA, and hearing Murphy in the morning saying, "Pass the loot," with a ka-ching of a cash register, was this kind of shocking satire that really kind of blew me away. And then there was Paul Miles of Miles Park and his wife Peaches, which was the other social commentary bit he did. I remember talking to my parents and having to explain to me what exactly was going on. I was also a fan of the Sunday comic strips, and I began doing comics myself. These are some guys from the Garden Gang. This was my comic strip when I was in second grade. That's Mr. Tomato there on the left. He was a sort of a timid fellow. The two guys in fedoras are Secret Squash and Private Pepper. They were Private Eyes. The guy with the sort of X's for eyes, the oversized grape, he was obsessed with politics and apparently a heavy drinker, although I don't think we connected that. And Mr. Orange was just like a lifeguard. He was super cool with Ray-Bans. Anyway, we created books and calendars and merch. And the other cartooning thing that was going on at this time was political cartoons. I really was fortunate to kind of come of age during the last golden age of political cartooning. Carolina's own Jeff McNelly, Mike Peters, and we had one of those giants in Charlotte, Doug Marlette. My best friend and I, actually my friend who went on to do cartoons here at the DTH, so I looked in the bar and he's not in there, I gotta look into that. He really should be. We went to see Doug and interview him, and he drew me one of his signature Carters. He was famous for this Jimmy Carter. You know, for Dave, keep drawing, from Doug Marlette. So those were a big influence on me. And then Mad Magazine. My mother hated Mad Magazine. Hated it. She thought the drawings were gross and sick. But the satire was incredible. There was a lot of intelligence, and we ate it up. And what else was going on in the late 70s? Well, there was a little show called Saturday Night Live that came along. For me, my sleepovers were literally organized around Saturday Night Live. We would stay up, make a bowl of popcorn, some laughter, same over there, right? And watching SNL and watching Steve Martin host SNL was an incredible thrill. And then Steve Martin was at the apex of his stand-up at this time, and stand-up comedy was a huge inspiration for us. The older brothers provided the George Carlin and the Richard Pryor. We had Cosby, we listened, we marveled, we laughed. And then in high school, going to see a Monty Python midnight movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, not only blew our minds, but expanded our consciousness. After Carolina, I went out to LA to try to become a screenwriter, drama, not comedy. I was a history major here at Chapel Hill. And I wound up at cable TV, and got married and had 3 of my 4 kids. And then I came back east to work for BBC America. And on my first week of the job, my boss and the head of PR, who were Brits, said, "We want you to look at this show that we didn't buy. We don't think it'll really work over here, but take a look." And that's when I first met this guy. That's David Brent from the original Office, if you don't know. And I thought it had obvious, cubicle Dilbert appeal. And so we brought the show to the States, and a year later it won the Golden Globe. And then in 2005, I made the move to Comedy Central. And ironically, I was kind of home again, to sort of this lifelong thing that had been in my DNA, and I didn't really quite realize it. Not everything we make is great, for sure, but I'm definitely proud of what we do, and I feel very, very fortunate to be doing it. Laughter, they say, is the best medicine, but I think it can also make you think. I think that I'm just about out of time, so thank you.